At 45, Linda found out that her husband had been hiding a second family for 20 years. When he excluded her from his will, leaving everything to his son from his mistress, Linda's life fell apart. But an unexpected inheritance from an aunt she barely knew turned everything upside down. But will she be able to resist when her family starts hunting for her money? My name is Linda Thompson, and I'm 47 years old. For the past 20 years, I've lived what I thought was a steady, predictable life in the quiet suburbs of Chicago, Lake Forest, to be exact. I've been married to Richard, a logistics manager who spends his days shuffling shipments and his nights unwinding with a beer in front of the TV. We don't have kids. He always said he wasn't ready, and I told myself I could wait. I work as an accountant, crunching numbers for a small firm downtown, keeping our modest two-bedroom house afloat with a mortgage I've chipped away at for years. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours, or so I thought. Richard and I met in our late 20s at a mutual friend's barbecue. He was charming back then, with a quick laugh and a knack for making you feel like the only person in the room. We married 2 years later, settled into a routine, and built a life I assumed would last. Sure, there were cracks, his late nights at the office, the way he'd dodge questions about his day, but I chalked it up to stress. I trusted him. That was my first mistake. Then there's my younger sister, Kate. She's 42, a single mom to her 15-year-old son, Michael, and barely scraping by on a cashier's salary at a grocery store in Evanston. Kate's always been the chaotic one, impulsive, emotional, the opposite of my measured approach. Growing up, she was my shadow, the little sister who'd borrow my clothes and spill her secrets over late-night coffee. After our mom passed 10 years ago, we got even closer. She'd call me when money was tight, and I'd send her a few $100, no questions asked. Family sticks together, I'd say, and she'd promise to pay me back someday. She never did, but I didn't mind. Not until recently. The trouble started 6 months ago, on a chilly October evening. Richard had been working late again, third time that week. I was tidying up the garage when I found something in his car, a crumpled piece of paper tucked under the passenger seat. It was a child's drawing, stick figures labeled Daddy and Me, signed Jake in wobbly crayon. My stomach dropped. We didn't have a Jake. When Richard got home, I held it up, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "What's this?" He glanced at it, shrugged, and said, "Oh, that's from my buddy's kid. Must have left it last time we carpooled." His eyes darted away too fast. I wanted to believe him, but the lie hung in the air like smoke. I couldn't let it go. The next day, I called Kate. She's always been my sounding board, the one I turn to when something's off. "Hey, you ever hear Richard mention a kid named Jake?" I asked, trying to keep it casual. There was a pause, too long, before she laughed it off. "Jake? No, probably just some random thing. You're overthinking it, Lynn." Her voice was tight, like she was holding something back. I pressed her, but she changed the subject to Michael's latest school project. That's when the first seed of doubt took root. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing things. Richard's phone buzzed more than usual, and he'd angle it away when I walked by. He'd come home smelling faintly of perfume, not mine. I checked our bank statements one night while he was asleep, something I hadn't done in years because I trusted him to handle the big stuff. There they were, monthly transfers, $300 here, $500 there, to an account in Indiana I didn't recognize. When I asked him about it over breakfast, he smirked and said, "Just helping out an old college friend. Don't worry about it." But I did worry. I worried a lot. That's when I knew something was wrong, really wrong. My marriage, my family, the life I'd built, it was all starting to feel like a house of cards, one gust away from collapse. I didn't have proof yet, but the pieces were there, scattered like clues in a puzzle I didn't want to solve. Richard was hiding something. Kate was too. And I was about to find out just how deep the betrayal ran. The unease gnawed at me for days after finding that drawing. I couldn't shake the image of Jake scrawled in crayon or the way Richard's excuses didn't quite add up. I'm Linda Thompson, 47, and I've spent 2 decades building a life with a man I thought I knew. Now, every creak of our Lake Forest home felt like a warning. I had to find out what was going on, really going on. It started with the bank statements. Those mysterious transfers to Indiana weren't a one-off. They'd been happening for years, tucked into our joint account like dirty little secrets. I printed out 6 months' worth and spread them across the kitchen table one night, the glow of my laptop casting shadows over the numbers. Hundreds of dollars every month, sometimes more, all labeled miscellaneous. Richard was still at work, or so he said, so I called the bank. "Can you tell me where this money's going?" I asked. The rep was polite but firm. "It's linked to a personal account, ma'am. You'd need the account holder's permission." That account holder was Richard. I didn't confront him right away. I needed more. The next evening, he said he had a late meeting, 4th time that week. I waited until his pickup truck rumbled out of the driveway, then grabbed my keys. I'd never followed him before, but something primal kicked in. My sedan trailed him through rush-hour traffic, past the warehouses where he worked, and onto I-94. He didn't head home. Instead, he crossed the state line into Indiana, pulling into a sleepy neighborhood in Gary, an hour from our house. I parked a block away, heart pounding, and watched. Richard stepped out, loosening his tie, and walked up to a squat brick house with a tricycle in the yard. The door swung open, and there she was, a woman, maybe mid-30s, with long dark hair and a warm smile. A boy, 10 or so, darted out, wrapping his arms around Richard's legs. My husband ruffled the kid's hair, then leaned down to kiss the woman. They laughed, a picture-perfect family, while I sat frozen, my hands gripping the steering wheel. That was Jake. That was why he smelled like perfume. That was why our money was disappearing. I drove home in a daze, the image burned into my skull. When Richard walked in at 10 p.m., whistling like nothing was wrong, I couldn't hold it in. "Who's Jake?" I demanded, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. He froze, beer halfway to his mouth. "What are you talking about?" he said, but his eyes flickered. "I followed you," I blurted. "I saw you with her, with them." The room went silent, thick with tension. Then he sighed, set the bottle down, and looked at me like I was the one who'd done something wrong. "Her name's Emily," he said, casual as if ordering takeout. "We've been together 12 years. Jake's my son." My knees buckled. I gripped the counter, staring at this stranger I'd slept next to for decades. 12 years? I whispered. "How, why?" He shrugged, infuriatingly calm. "It just happened. She gets me, Linda. And you never gave me kids." The words hit like a slap. I exploded. "I never gave you kids. You said you weren't ready. You lied to me, every day, every night." My voice cracked, tears streaming, but he just stood there, unmoved. Then came the bombshell. "I rewrote my will," he said, folding his arms. "The house, my savings, it's all going to Jake. He's my blood. You're not." I couldn't breathe. 20 years of marriage, of paying that mortgage together, and he was erasing me. "What about me?" I choked out. He smirked. "You'll figure it out. You're good with numbers, right?" It was cruel, deliberate, like he'd rehearsed it. I stormed out, driving straight to Kate's cramped apartment in Evanston. She opened the door, bleary-eyed in her pajamas, Michael asleep on the couch behind her. "He's got another family," I sobbed, collapsing into her arms. "A son. He's giving him everything." Kate hugged me, but her grip felt stiff. "Oh, Lynn," she murmured, "I'm so sorry." I pulled back, searching her face. "Did you know?" Her silence said it all. Finally, she nodded. "He told me years ago. Asked me not to say anything. I thought he'd end it. My sister, my confidant, had known while I played the fool. Why didn't you tell me?" I demanded. She looked away. I didn't want to ruin your life. Too late for that. My marriage was a lie, my sister a traitor, and my home no longer mine. The cracks I'd ignored had split wide open, and I was falling through. I'm Linda Thompson, 47, and my life was unraveling faster than I could grasp. My husband of 20 years, Richard, had a secret family, an entire second life in Indiana with a woman named Emily and their son, Jake. He'd rewritten his will, leaving our Lake Forest house and everything else to his real son, as if I'd been a placeholder all along. Worse, my sister Kate, my rock, had known for years and kept it from me. I was drowning in betrayal, but the tide hadn't finished rising. After that night at Kate's, I couldn't face Richard. I packed a bag and checked into a cheap motel off I-94, the kind with flickering neon signs and stained carpets. I needed space to think, to breathe. My phone buzzed non-stop, Richard's texts, a mix of apologies and defensiveness. Let's talk, Lynn. You're overreacting. I ignored them. Kate called too, her voicemail soft and pleading. I messed up, okay? Call me. I didn't. I couldn't. Trust was shattered, and I wasn't ready to sift through the pieces. Work became my lifeline. I threw myself into spreadsheets, letting the numbers numb the chaos in my head. But even there, Richard's shadow lingered. I filed for divorce a week later, hiring a lawyer named Susan, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. We'll split everything 50-50, she said, flipping through our financials. Illinois law's clear on that. I nodded, but something nagged at me, those bank transfers to Indiana. Dig deeper, I told her. I want to know where my money's gone. Susan called me 3 days later, her voice tight. You need to come in. Now. I drove to her office in downtown Chicago, my stomach in knots. She slid a stack of papers across her desk, bank records, emails, even a fake tax return. Richard's been siphoning your joint account for years, she said. Not just his salary, your savings too. He set up a dummy account under consulting fees and funneled it to Emily. We're talking tens of thousands, Linda. I stared at the numbers, my hands shaking. He stole from me? Susan nodded. And covered it up. This isn't just divorce territory, it's fraud. The room spun. Every late night meeting, every time he brushed off my questions about money, it wasn't just an affair. He'd built his second life with my money. The mortgage I'd paid, the overtime I'd worked, it was all propping up Emily's cozy house and Jake's tricycle. I want him to pay, I said, my voice steel. Susan smirked. Oh, he will. This is a slam dunk in court. But before I could process it, fate threw me a curveball. My phone rang, a St. Louis area code I didn't recognize. Is this Linda Thompson? A man asked, his tone clipped and professional. Yes, I said, wary. I'm David Hargrove, an attorney. Your great-aunt Eleanor passed away last month. She named you her sole beneficiary. I blinked. Aunt Eleanor? I barely knew her, a distant figure from my dad's side, a widow who'd sent me a $20 check every Christmas until I was 12. I'd seen her maybe 5 times, the last at my mom's funeral a decade ago. She left you everything, Hargrove continued. Her estate's worth $4 million, cash, stocks, a condo in Sarasota. There's a letter too. I'll mail it. I hung up, stunned. For $1 million? From a woman I hardly remembered? It didn't make sense. That night, alone in the motel, I couldn't sleep. Richard's fraud, Kate's silence, and now this, it was too much. When the letter arrived 2 days later, I tore it open with trembling fingers. Eleanor's handwriting was shaky but firm. Linda, I watched you from afar. You're strong, independent, like I wish I'd been. I never had kids, and my husband's gone. I want you to have what I couldn't enjoy. Live for yourself. Tears stung my eyes. She'd seen me, really seen me, when my own family hadn't. I should have felt relief, but the news spread like wildfire. Kate called first, her tone unnaturally bright. $4 million? Lynn, that's incredible. You know Michael's college fund could use a boost. Then Richard, his voice syrupy, maybe we don't need that divorce. We can work this out. Even cousins I hadn't spoken to in years texted, fishing for handouts. The vultures were circling, and the secret of Richard's theft was still my ace in the hole. Things were about to get ugly. I'm Linda Thompson, 47, and I'd just been handed 2 bombshells that turned my world upside down. My husband Richard had spent 12 years cheating with Emily, raising their son Jake on money he'd stolen from our joint account, my money. Then, out of nowhere, my great-aunt Eleanor left me $4 million, a lifeline when I was drowning in betrayal. But as I sat in that dingy motel room off I-94, the walls closing in, I realized the fight was far from over. The people I'd trusted most were about to show their true colors. The call started the day after I got Eleanor's letter. Richard first, his voice dripping with fake sincerity. Linda, babe, let's not rush into divorce. We can rebuild, you, me, and that money. I hung up, bile rising in my throat. Then Kate, my sister, who'd known about his affair all along. Lynn, this inheritance changes everything. Michael's tuition's killing me. $20,000 would set us straight. Her cheerfulness was a mask, and I saw through it. Even distant relatives crawled out of the woodwork, cousins I hadn't seen since Mom's funeral, texting about medical bills and tough times. Overnight, I went from a nobody to a walking ATM. I moved back to our Lake Forest house, refusing to let Richard scare me out. He was still there, acting like nothing had changed, sprawled on the couch with a beer when I walked in. "You're back," he said, smirking. "Good. We need to talk about that $4 million. I snapped. "There's no we, Richard. You stole from me, tens of thousands, for your little family in Indiana. My lawyers got the proof." His smirk vanished, replaced by a cold stare. "You don't get it, do you? That money's ours, community property. I'll fight you for half." My blood boiled. "Try it," I said. "You'll lose everything." The next day, Kate showed up unannounced, Michael in tow. She hugged me, too tight, too desperate. "I'm so sorry about Richard," she said, eyes darting. "But we're family, Lynn. You've got millions now, help me out, please." Michael shifted uncomfortably, staring at his sneakers. "I don't owe you anything," I said, voice steady. "You kept his secret for years." Her face hardened. "He begged me not to tell. And Mom would have wanted us to share this, her sister's money, our blood." I laughed, bitter. "Mom would have been ashamed of you." Then came the real blow. Richard and Kate teamed up. He called me that night. Kate and I talked. "We're taking you to court, half the inheritance, minimum. You can't hoard it." I slammed the phone down, shaking. Susan, my lawyer, wasn't worried. "He's got no claim, Eleanor's will is ironclad, and it's not marital property." "But the fraud? That's our weapon." She'd uncovered more, fake receipts, doctored emails. Richard had skimmed over $80,000 from me since 2015. "He's toast," she said. I wanted justice, but the betrayal cut deeper than the money. The showdown happened a week later. Kate asked to meet at a coffee shop in Evanston, neutral ground. I agreed, hoping for closure, but I should have known better. She sat across from me, stirring her latte, avoiding my eyes. "Things are rough," she started. "Richard's health's bad, Michael's school fees are piling up, we're thinking of moving. I need a break, Lynn." Then it came, "Write me a check for $1 million. It's fair," Mom sighed, "our legacy." I nearly choked. $1 million? Are you insane? She didn't flinch. "You've got plenty. Richard deserves some too, he's still your husband." I stood, coffee untouched. "He's a thief, and you're a liar." "I'm done." She grabbed my arm, voice rising. You've always been selfish. We raised you, sacrificed for you, now you're hoarding it all. Heads turned in the shop. Sacrificed? I shot back. You watched him destroy me and said nothing. Goodbye, Kate. I walked out, her shouts echoing behind me. That night, Richard texted, "You'll regret this. We're family, you can't cut us out." I blocked him. The emotional peak hit when Susan called the next morning. "Richard's filing against you, claims half the estate and says you're unstable." Kate's backing him, saying you owe her for emotional support. I laughed, hollow. They'd stoop to anything. But I had the evidence, his fraud, her complicity, and a will no court could touch. The vultures had overplayed their hand, and I was ready to strike back. I'm Linda Thompson, 47, and I'd hit rock bottom, or so I thought. My husband Richard had stolen from me to fund his secret family with Emily and their son Jake, then tried to claim half of the $4 million inheritance my great-aunt Eleanor left me. My sister Kate, who'd hidden his affair for years, demanded $1 million, teaming up with him to drag me through the mud. I was done being their punching bag. It was time to fight back and find my peace. The courtroom became my battleground. Susan, my lawyer, was a pit bull in heels. Richard's filing claimed I was emotionally unstable and that the inheritance was marital property, laughable, given Eleanor's will named only me. Kate testified too, spinning a sob story about family loyalty and how I owed her. But Susan had the trump card, years of bank records showing Richard's fraud, $80,000 siphoned from our joint account, funneled to Emily under fake consulting fees. This isn't just infidelity, Susan told the judge. It's theft. Richard's smug grin faded as the evidence piled up. The ruling came fast. The judge tossed his claim to the inheritance. Eleanor's estate was mine alone, untouchable by marital law. Then came the fraud. Richard was ordered to repay every cent, plus a $20,000 fine. The divorce finalized with me keeping the Lake Forest house. He got nothing but a legal bill. Kate's support claim? Dismissed as baseless. She stormed out, glaring at me like I'd betrayed her. The irony wasn't lost on me. Richard slunk back to Emily in Indiana, but word got around, without my money propping them up, their perfect life cracked. A friend of a friend told me she'd kicked him out after a fight over bills. He was sleeping in his truck last I heard, a fitting end for a man who'd built his happiness on lies. Kate stopped calling, but not before texting a final guilt trip. "You've ruined us. Hope you're happy." I deleted it. She'd made her choice years ago. I sold the house, too many ghosts, and bought a condo in Chicago's Lincoln Park, a fresh start with a view of the lake. The $4 million I split smartly, half in investments, a quarter in savings, and the rest for me, a car, a trip to Italy, things I'd never dared dream of. Susan's words stuck with me, live for yourself. Eleanor's letter echoed the same. For the first time in decades, I did. Then came an unexpected twist. One afternoon, a handwritten note slipped under my door. "Aunt Linda, it's Michael. I'm sorry about Mom. Can we talk?" Kate's son, 15 now, stood on my stoop a week later, awkward and earnest. "I didn't know what they were doing," he said, kicking at the ground. "I miss you." My heart softened. He wasn't them. We grabbed burgers, talked about school, his robotics club, his dream of MIT. "Mom's mad I came," he admitted. "But you're cool." I smiled, the first real one in months. I set up a $50,000 trust for his college. No strings, no contact with Kate. He hugged me tight before he left. The fallout lingered. Cousins who'd begged for cash faded away when I stopped answering. Richard's threats dried up after the court loss. Kate spread rumors. I'd stolen the inheritance. I was heartless, but they fizzled when people saw through her. I didn't care. I'd spent years chasing their approval, bending over backwards for a family that only took. Now, I was free. I took a road trip that summer with two old friends, women who'd stuck by me when blood didn't. We drove up the coast, laughed over wine, and I realized something: family isn't DNA. It's the people who show up when you've got nothing to give. Eleanor saw that in me, strength I'd forgotten. Michael did too, in his own quiet way. Richard and Kate? They'd gambled on greed and lost. Sitting in my condo now, the city humming below, I feel lighter. The inheritance didn't just save me, it showed me who I am. I'm not the wife Richard discarded or the sister Kate exploited. I'm Linda, stronger, wiser, and finally home. If you've got a story of breaking free, share it below. I'd love to hear it. Thanks for listening.